Here.
Kip? Here. Raindrop?
Excuse me.
Liston?
Yes.
Singh?
Present.
Sarura? Here. Valdez?
Here.
Weissman?
Here.
Wooten?
Here.
Madam Chair.
All right, our first bill today is House Bill 1143, distribute plastic straws only upon request. So Representative Montini, you please tell us how you vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Energy and Environment Committee. To say that this bill has drawn attention it's drawn a lot of attention that honestly I had not expected. And one of the reasons why I brought this bill forward is recognizing the harm that we see in our environment due to single-use plastics. And the damage that we've seen has been recently highlighted. This came out after the bill was introduced by a video that's gone viral of a sea turtle with a straw that's not one. It's all over the place. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty easy to find. You should Google it. It's pretty sad. And we're losing marine wildlife, not just smaller creatures, but even as large as whales, to the amount of plastic in our oceans. And if you're asking yourself what landlocked Colorado has to do with this, it's estimated that 80% of the waste in our oceans comes from lands. We're seeing what happens is when we have wind and rain, which happens a lot here and everywhere else, that waste is driven into our rivers and streams, which is then delivered downstream into our oceans. So what we do here does affect the environment in our oceans. And just not to say our own environment here in Colorado. House Bill 1143 will not by itself solve this problem, and I recognize that, but it is a step in the right direction. Asking our restaurants to not automatically assume a straw is needed when serving drinks, and ask patrons or the server to simply ask for one will reduce waste generated by plastic straws. Upon request recognizes that there are circumstances where a straw is needed. This bill exempts drive-through purchases as using a beverage with the use of a straw or without the use of a straw could be a safety concern for distracted driving. Use in a hospital for patient use. Daily living for people with physical impairments are some of the reasons why I wanted to make this upon request and not a total ban. There are those who have asked why not require restaurants to, or just straws in general, to get rid of straws completely. Why not ask them to use paper straws or straws made of compostable products materials? And we do not have the manufacturing capacity for those compostable materials at this point to take this up in the end. I see that as a business opportunity if anyone is looking for one. I'd like to give an example of one of the reasons why I've heard a concern around exempting our local governments from being able to address this individually, because the bill does set a statewide standard. And the example I would like to give is really from my own neighborhood. I live in Southwest Denver, and the part of Southwest Denver that I live in is very close to multiple jurisdictions. One of the main thoroughfares is Wadsworth Boulevard. I don't know how familiar many of you are with Southwest Denver in that part of town, but I live in Denver. And across the street on Wadsworth are multiple other jurisdictions, most notably unincorporated Jefferson County and Lakewood. And it is difficult to tell you which side of the street, because it jags back and forth, you're on as to what jurisdiction you're in. And that speaks to the level of confusion that I would be concerned with if we had different standards in different jurisdictions. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's the general basics of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Fontaine. Members, do we have any questions? Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Fontaine, for bringing this bill. I have a good question. So if I'm a server and this was to pass through and I was to give a straw without request, what would be done?
Representative Fontaine.
We've not put any enforcement mechanism in the bill. It's our belief that setting forth this policy would be a way to change behavior.
Anybody else? All right, yes, Representative Singh.
Yes, if the sponsor could answer this, so what percentage of our straw waste ends up in oceans? We have a,
Representative Fontaine.
I don't have any statistics specific to straws, just to waste in general. And it's estimated that 80% of the trash that we find in our oceans comes from landlocked products in the world.
Representative Singh.
so with all of those, what percentage of our waste ends up in the ocean? Do we have any?
I don't,
Representative Fontaine.
thank you, I don't have any specific data about Colorado that is specific to, that's open to just general. Citizens from land loss.
Please dialogue, Representative
Just
Singh.
this last one, I was hoping to hear something more specific, because it looks like we're searching for the problem with this bill, but I'm sure you've got some of this is coming.
Representative Fontaine, do you want to go? All right, Representative Liston, do you have a question?
Just a kind of a comment or a question. I too have seen some of these videos or programs. I'm not sure where I saw it about the plastic waste and stuff. And what I recall, what I saw is while the United States certainly isn't perfect as it pertains to trying to take care of the plastic problem, we're far ahead of virtually every other country. Most of the plastic waste comes from a lot of the countries in the Southeast Asia, Indonesia, and all down in through there, India, and so forth. So I guess I would just kind of make the comment that while we're trying to do a good and better job, we do a better job each year. It's a lot of these third world countries that just dump their plastic waste and everything else into the ocean. I agree with your premise, but I just don't want us to be necessarily, not that you're doing that we're being portrayed as the main source of the problem, because I think we're trying to address the problem far more so than virtually all third world countries.
Representative Fontaine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not really sure I heard a question.
It was kind of a comment, and if you want to respond, that'd be fine.
I can only say that while we have no control over what happens in other parts of the world, that certainly doesn't prevent us from trying to do the best that we can do and try to limit our own contribution to environmental waste. So I'm not really sure that there's any answer that would satisfy your concern, but that's really all that we can do here. And I don't see any harm from trying to do the best that we can do.
Representative Liston, do you have a question?
No, it's just that I agree with your comments. I think we are trying to do the best we can, and I agree with what you just said.
Representative Geithner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question, what would a single serve dispenser look like? It references in the bill on page, I believe it's 3, line 15, a self-serve straw dispenser. What would that look like?
Representative Fontaine.
Well, Representative Geithner, we have a self-serve dispenser in our own cafeteria, so perhaps you could go with me.
Representative Gayton.
I'm sure I could. I think the question I'm getting at is, could restaurants place a simple cup with a handful of straws inside of it and leave that at the table? Would that serve potentially as a straw dispenser?
Representative Monty.
I'm not sure that that really addresses anything, and really what we're talking about is when people are sitting down at restaurants and automatically being given straws, even though they may not want them. I, for one, don't use straws. And for only the reason it's just not my preference. So, but I still, without even asking for one, always seem to get one in my drink. And I always take it out, but it can't be used again, so it's just thrown away. That's the kind of thing we're trying to prevent. We're not stopping people from using them. We're just saying that it's just upon request. And putting a straw dispenser in the middle of the table, I don't know, it seems kind of changing to the ambiance that a restaurant may want to have. So, I'm not sure that there's any other answer to that question, but
Let the record reflect that Representative Landgraf has joined us. Representative Geithner, do you have another question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I understand what you're saying about the ambiance. There are certain diners, specifically in Monument, that I think a diner it would not take away from the aesthetics of the environment if there was a straw dispenser, and that's why I asked the question. Since we're not defining what a straw dispenser is, perhaps a dialogue to really hone in on what a straw dispenser is would qualify as, because argument could be a simple glass with a handful of straws, and it could serve as a straw dispenser. And so that's the reason I bring that piece out.
Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I apologize for being off the street with the bill, so I'm not sure if this was addressed. I have noticed in Denver, in a restaurant, that you have to ask for a straw, which is perfectly acceptable to me. I think they're also getting to where you have to ask for chips and salsa, which is also acceptable, because we know that if these things aren't used, they're thrown away. Why do we need a bill for this? Why wouldn't common sense just prevail?
Representative Monty.
thank you, Madam Chair. Doesn't seem to be a standardization of that sort of behavior, and so this is to really encourage that sort of behavior. I went to one of our favorite restaurants across the street. I don't know if we should mention those things by name in here, but 1 week, and I always get my standard iced tea. 1 week I was given a straw automatically, and the next week I ordered the same thing and was not. So it would be to encourage that behavior be standardized.
Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couldn't you just say no straw?
Representative Monty.
We're not imposing a ban.
Further questions, members? Yes, Representative Geithner.
So a question then about, and I know it's upon request, so how do nursing homes, hospitals, these types of long-term care facilities fit into this? They don't seem to be excluded in the bill. I see it, so my mother's had a stroke and she literally cannot drink without a straw. If I was to take her to a restaurant or she was to decide to go to one, now all of a sudden she has an obstacle in front of her. I see it as somewhat of a dignity issue as well. How do we look out for nursing homes, hospitals, those types of facilities, and those types of individuals that may see a straw as something essential that what they would need, where if they had to request, it's another obstacle in front of what is already certainly a challenge that they're experiencing. But if you could just speak to that, I would appreciate that.
Representative Monty.
We're silent on that, and so what their policy is now will continue to be the same.
Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks again, Representative Lachine. I really do want to applaud you for your effort to do something about the plastic waste issue. Just one other question. Why straws in particular, as opposed to, say, plastic bags or the cup itself, plastic cups themselves? I'm just wondering if there's any, additional harm that's done by the straw itself when it finds its way into our waterways, as opposed to like a plastic bag or anything of that nature.
Representative Monty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. wondering if maybe that might be a question that could be addressed by some of our witnesses. It's my understanding they're a little more difficult to recycle, because of their size and their ability to slip through things. But if we could have someone else with more experience in the recycling world talk about it, that would be great.
All right, seeing no further questions from members, we will move into the testimony phase. Folks, we will be timing testimony to 3 minutes. Representative Martini, would you care for her comments or her comments? Or does it?
It doesn't matter. If you'd like to alternate between the two, that would be fine.
All right. Then I will call you up in panels. There will be this little box over here. When the light strikes red, that means that you're.
I'm going to be speaking on the testimony.
And of course, committee members will be able to ask you questions. So, the first name here, I do not know if you are for or against the bill, Mr. Brian Loma. If you could please approach. Tracy McDermott. And Nick Hoover.
Guess I'm sitting in the middle.
Mr. Loma?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We will then start with Mr. Hoover and move on down this direction. So, Mr. Hoover, if you could please tell us your full name and who you represent, and then you have 3 minutes.
Is on? There. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for allowing me to testify before you today. My name is Nick Hoover. I manage government affairs for the Colorado Restaurant Association. CRA members make up nearly half of the 11,800 eating and drinking establishments in Colorado, who employ over 285,000 Colorado residents, and we are here today in support of House Bill 1143 as introduced. First off, I wanted to thank Representative Lontine for bringing this legislation forward. This bill is a reasoned and moderate approach that will reduce the amount of single-use straws used in the state of Colorado without putting undue burden on Colorado's restaurants and bars, while at the same time addressing public safety concerns and allowing individuals who need straws the ability to get them. This bill does not require the use of any particular type of straw, allowing a restaurant to continue to use the straws that they have already purchased and not burdening them but with supply chain problems. Additionally, not requiring their use of specific straws is important because in locations where there is not adequate supply chain, it could be a serious burden and almost a de facto ban on straws for those restaurants. This bill creates one statewide standard that all businesses have to operate under. Without this statewide standard, if it were to go down the route of 64 counties and 272 municipalities, having the ability to create their own regulations on what types of straws can be used or if straws can be offered at all, this would be a significant compliance nightmare for restaurants, as Representative Lontine indicated earlier. House Bill 1143 is a reasoned and moderate approach that will reduce straw use in the state of Colorado, and I ask you to please vote yes on House Bill 1143. And with that, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Hoover. And we will have questions after we hear from our panel. And there's this little button in front of your microphone. It needs to be green. It might be red right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Mr. Loma,
Yes.
please tell us your first and last name and who you represent.
So my name is Brian Loma. I am a transplant to Colorado. My grandfather was born here. I am here on behalf of the earth and the next generation. And I'll just read what I have to start with. Good afternoon, honorable ladies and gentlemen persons of this committee. I am a business owner, an activist, an educator, and an environmentalist who calls Colorado home. as an alumni of Metropolitan State University, I have created 2 programs that are still in existence 5 years after my graduation. One of those is weekly cleanup or monthly cleanups of the Cherry Creek Bike Trail outside the university. The last time I spoke in this building was for the plastic microbead legislation that was passed several years ago. And that bill, like the one before us today, misses the mark in significant ways. Managing the problem that governments constantly face. Some states have done a fantastic job of managing this task by recognizing the responsibility that begins with the manufacturer of goods. There are about 15 states that have adopted enhanced manufacturer's responsibility through direct deposit programs. Other communities, like my native home state of Wisconsin, have mandated consumer responsibility by considering recycling as the law. This bill, as it's written and is presented on the website, has footprints of major corporations, including oil and gas companies, removing in its presence. Removing the ability of local communities from declaring local home rule to ban plastic straws has the same effect that we have on the plastic bag ban, which I'll get to momentarily. I am against all single-use plastics. I do not travel anywhere without my sustainable beverage container, my own personal straws, and my own consumable silverware. Even my business cards are made from Colorado air, sunshine, and soil, they are 100% hemp. And I do know about trash going from the ocean or from the mountains to the ocean. After my graduation, I spent 2 years cleaning trash in the South Pacific. And I guarantee you that plastic from communities like Denver is destroying the water and the soil as it leaves our city through stormwater pollution, amongst other methodologies. This pollution includes the release of bisphenol, which is a chemical in plastics, including straws, that when sun and water combine with it, release this chemical into our water supply, and it affects human DNA. Most of my life, I've seen plastic bags flying in trees. We don't need specific data of how much trash ends up in the ocean to know that our pollution does end up in the environment. I believe that this bill at heart is a good idea. The concept relates to a lot of things that the current and future generations are looking at as far as the waste that we experience, but I think that it misses the mark in many ways. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Ms. McDermott.
Thank you. I'm Tracy McDermott. I'm a volunteer with the Inland Ocean Coalition, which is a nonprofit that was started in Colorado to get inland communities involved in ocean conservation. The organization is dedicated to creating an inland movement that builds land to sea stewardship by encouraging citizens and communities to take an active role in the conservation and protection of our ocean. By engaging individuals and communities that want to help protect the ocean, we build chapters, lead campaigns, and deliver programs that have a direct positive impact on our watersheds, coasts, and oceans. One of the biggest concerns is plastic pollution. On behalf of the Colorado Ocean Coalition chapter of the Inland Ocean Coalition, we are deeply concerned about the amount of plastic waste generated and disposed of in Colorado and across the country. Plastic production is about 300 million metric tons per year, and over 8 million tons of plastic ends up in our ocean annually. As mentioned earlier, 80% of this comes from inland sources. You can just take a good look around the streets of Denver to understand that today. Flowing through our rivers and waterways. In 2016, the Colorado Ocean Coalition started an educational campaign called Suck the Straws Out to decrease the use of plastic straws across Colorado. We encourage bars, restaurants, businesses, and other establishments to only serve straws upon request and to offer an eco-friendly or reusable alternative in such cases. This is a volunteer-based approach because since 1993, Colorado's had a ban that prohibits municipalities from banning plastics. Plastic straws are derived from fossil fuels and are not recyclable. Most of the plastic we consume is used once before being thrown away, and only 9% of plastic is recycled in the U.S., creating a disposal nightmare. Plastic pollution is harmful to human health and is negatively impacting our communities. It pollutes our waterways, and is toxic and often fatal to wildlife on land and in aquatic and marine environments. We appreciate the goals of House Bill 121143, the Straws Upon Request Bill, but it contains language regarding preemption that is seriously problematic and redundant, as preemption is already the law of the land in Colorado. We're especially concerned that the plastic preemption language would bar local governments from taking any further action to regulate straws in the future. The preemption language essentially usurps the authority of local municipalities. We believe the community should have the ability to enforce policies and devise their own regulations to address plastic pollution in their districts. Please do not pass HB 121143 in its current form. Thank you.
Members, do we have questions? Representative Weissman.
Thank you, and a few different questions that may be best put to different witnesses, if that's okay.
Say that one more time.
Sorry, just a few different questions, questions I think for different witnesses, if that's okay.
That's quite all right.
Thank you.
Please, Tyler.
Okay, I'd just like to make sure we're all using the term inland states in the same way I think of an inland state as, I guess, a landlocked state, a state east, south, west that does not have any border on any ocean. Is that how we're all using that?
Whomever would like to answer that question?
Yes.
I don't-
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Next question I think is for Mr. Hooper concerning the Restaurant Association. You mentioned that about half of Colorado restaurants are members. I'm not super familiar with your organization. I guess it's entirely voluntary. Somebody opens a restaurant or has had a restaurant for 10 years, they become aware of the association, they may or may not join. And then I'll pivot to the next question and let you answer both at once. Do you have any kind of internal guidance, best practices for reducing one's waste footprint? That, like an information bank that's available to members on request, anything like that?
Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for that question. First off, yes, our membership is voluntary based. Most of them see the benefits of the organization, and that's why they've come on board. As far as best practices that we have when it comes to reducing plastics or best practices for anything, we tend to advise our members on what it would be a good or best practice, and in this case, I think it's pretty safe to say that because we are in support of a straw on request bill, that would be what we advise them as a best practice. If that business chooses to go further and then also to either provide compostable or bamboo straws, that's absolutely their choice. But definitely, yes, we do see this as a best practice that a business could choose to adopt.
Members. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Hoover, this is a question for you. I'm curious, do you know what the price differential is with the Restaurant Association vis-a-vis a carton or whatever it is of plastic straws versus paper straws versus bamboo straws or whatever? Do you shed any light on that?
Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for that question. The last information I saw when I spoke to a supply chain manager for a regional restaurant group was it was roughly 300% more depending on the type of straw that you want to purchase than a plastic straw. The information that I received from them not that long ago. And this bill, like I said, would not mandate the use of any specific straw, but just simply that if they're going to provide a straw, it be upon request.
Representative Wilson.
I'm curious, have there been a large, maybe the other witnesses can shed some light on this, really a large outcry for the use of straws or not using straws, banning straws? I'm just curious. I appreciate voluntary and I'm all for that, but has there been a real groundswell of support, or is this just being pushed by one or two interest groups? I don't know.
Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that, Representative Liston. I can tell you anecdotally, I don't really have hard data on that, but I can tell you that a lot of businesses, a lot of restaurants have already gone down the route of straws upon request, whether that is because they saw pushback from customers or they just wanted the cost-saving benefits of not having to pay for the straws that people like myself don't use when we get them. I don't prefer to drink out of straws. There's a cost-saving benefit there. I couldn't tell you exactly why, but there is definitely a movement amongst restaurants to go towards straws on request.
And Mr. Loma, I see you wanted to answer that question.
Yes, I would like to also say that I believe that groups around the world are pushing, but especially in the United States, there are groups like the Earth Guardians, which are youth that have started here in Colorado, spread globally to raise awareness about the impacts of all our single-use consumptions. Groups like the Inland Ocean Coalition, and I'm sure others who will come to testify, that would indicate that the awareness of our footprints, of the long-term impacts to the soil, to the water, to the animal life, that turtle with the straw in its nose, that picture's been around for 20 years now, right? We're still pulling plastics out of, when I cleaned oceans in the South Pacific, you could see plastics that were made in the 50s and 60s that were still in the same conditions virtually as when they were first thrown into the ocean. So it's a serious condition, all single-use consumption. And that's why I indicated that this bill didn't go far enough, because it makes the voluntary straw still allows it to be a petroleum straw and not an organic or biodegradable that won't affect our soil and our water 100 years from now. The average life of a single use plastic straw is about 400 years. We use it on average of about 20 minutes.
Representative Gagnon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is for Mr. Hoover, I think, mainly. So if we're already seeing that, there is a potential cost savings in terms of, fixed costs that a restaurant may otherwise take on, and we're seeing that some restaurants choose not to do this, just due to the savings factor alone. Then you have some social pressures from organizations, individuals that, would say, hey, this is bad for the environment, that bit. And then we just heard there's no enforcement piece to this. So what does this bill really do? It seems like there's a lot of factors already at play that are impeding the use or preventing the use or of plastic straws. What does this bill really do? It doesn't have any teeth. We're already seeing that the market is already offering solutions. Why do we need this?
Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that question, Representative. When our board discussed this piece of legislation and our support for this piece of legislation, we thought it was an opportunity for the industry to come together behind this issue and ask the rest of the industry to really kind of put a standard in place on what is appropriate. And we did not want to think it would be right to come down with a heavy hand of a type of fine or fee or anything like that for a server or a bartender failing to ask someone if they would like a straw or be asked for a straw, but really took this as an opportunity to encourage and get some more restaurateurs to think about this as a standard. And additionally, the cost saving benefits that come from this, we believe was also more encouragement to get more restaurants on board.
Representative Gagnon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Mr. Hoover, is it fair to say that this is an encouraging bill? It's a bill that encourages certain things to do, or for entrepreneurs and business owners to do. We're just encouraging a practice. I wonder if that's really the right thing to do here.
Mr. Hoover, this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative. Like I said, we saw an opportunity, with our board of directors saw an opportunity to get behind an issue and create a statewide standard and allow for the public safety concerns, for the concerns for individuals who need straws, need an adequate straw, to be addressed by moving forward with this legislation, or supporting this legislation that will reduce straws in the state of Colorado and hopefully encourage a few more businesses to go that way.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes, thank you.
Would like to answer this question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My only comment on this is that it takes a long time for people to change. That's why something like this is important. I have spent years in restaurants asking for no straw, to the point of being ridiculed at times from servers. Restaurants are not going to change overnight. And even though my opening statement is that we believe there are problems with this, there is a need to do these type of things. It is incredible wasteful practice, and nobody's saying that those in need who should not have it, they should have it. I do the same thing. I bring a straw with me. I bring my own utensils. I realize everybody doesn't do this, but the bottom line is people in general don't always do the right thing.
Members, any other questions? I have one. Yes, Representative Langgraf, do you have a question?
I do.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Restaurant Association.
Yes.
How are you going to get word out if this bill passes? How will you spread the word that this is now a law?
I'm sorry, Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Landgraf. We would get the word out the exact same way that we would with all of our communications. We try to communicate very thoroughly with all of our restaurant members. We unfortunately don't have emails or communication for every restaurant in the state. I wish they would all join and become members of the Restaurant Association, but this would be going out in every newsletter that we can possibly find. It'll be talked about in chapter meetings. It'll be talked about as thoroughly as we possibly can whenever possible.
Representative Langgraf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That actually brings me back to my point. Why can't you put that out now as just a strongly worded recommendation and point out the savings that each of your restaurants would see if they did this voluntarily?
Mr. Hoover.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Landgraf, for that question. We absolutely can, and we have in the past when we talk about our sustainability products or our sustainability projects around the state. We have provided information to restaurateurs quite often about how they can reduce their carbon footprint or reduce waste, or how they can receive cost-saving benefits by changing a couple of things in their business. It's going to continue anyway. This was an opportunity for us to support an issue like this and hopefully get another way to get a few more businesses going down this path.
Thank you. Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Hoover, I'm wondering, when I see a lot of litter waste, straw specifically, it's fast food, do you represent or are fast food companies members of the Restaurant Association?
Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Valdez. Yes, some of them are, not all of them are, much like the independents in the state, some of them are, not all of them are. We do represent both categories, but about 75 to 80% of our membership is independent, single-owned operators.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoover, I have a very quick question that actually was a question that Representative Valdez had a little bit earlier, as it relates to other single-use plastic items or straws. Mr. Hoover.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, this is a question. I just want to make sure you're asking why.
Why straws as opposed to other single-use plastic items?
Thank you. When this was first discussed by our board of directors, we were already hearing of other bills being brought forward, but not on this issue. And that's why they decided that this was another opportunity to get something done.
All right, I see no further questions for this panel of witnesses.
Thank you.
We will move on.
That's that, folks. Gonna miss a lot of important questions on this. Hopefully some of our next guests will cover it.
And again, we will move move from this direction of the panel. You each have 3 minutes, the little green button, and the red button will flash. When your 3 minutes is up, please introduce yourselves and tell us who you represent. Mr. Phillips.
Hi there, thank you all for your time.
Mr. Microphone on, sir.
Hi there, thank you all for your time today in consideration of House Bill 1143. My name is Nick Phillips, and I'm an activist here in Denver seeking to raise awareness about the #1 most littered item in the world. I started the Where Do Butts Go positive activism campaign over a year and a half ago to highlight the issue and offer alternative solutions to divert cigarette waste from waterways and landfills. I'm here today to testify against this bill, though I thank the sponsor for bringing this measure to the floor. Single-use plastic is another global crisis, and I appreciate trying to limit the amount of plastic straws contributed by the state of Colorado. But if we are going to do this, let's do this all the way and remove plastic straws from food establishments as a whole. This bill not only takes away the right for local governments to do what's best for their constituents, it also doesn't address our consumption.
I sell straws, cut the plastic at
gmail.com. $20
for 4 straws plus a brush.
This bill taxes plastic straws and follow the rest of the language. Businesses wouldn't have to buy as many straws and could choose to buy whatever straws they'd like. I also have concerns with enforcement, as it's easier to have a restaurant supply these sustainable alternatives than to monitor serving staff distribution of a straw. I wanted to address some things that were brought up, just the new burdens that would be created with this bill, or the new burdens that are created with a ban of plastic straws. I'm curious about the burden of retraining staff to now not supply a straw unless you're then asked. I remember training at Chili's where it's every water gets a straw, and then I imagine the training has then dissipated with this new found awareness. Thank you again all for your time in discussing this, as I really believe the publicity from this conversation is going to continue to heighten the awareness of Colorado's residents, and we'll all continue to choose not to grab a straw, even if they're only provided at a single-serve station.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Ms. Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jan Rose. I'm here representing myself. And I want to begin by saying this is a really good Monday and a really good hearing, because 2 positive things can happen from this hearing today. We can make Colorado a cleaner, both by litter and in our air, and to me, that's always a great reason to take the light rail downtown and go to the Capitol and testify. I'm thrilled to be at this hearing today, really. So let's go over a couple of things. On a personal level, I live less than 400 feet from a Starbucks. And there are 8 storm drains, I have counted them, between my house and the Starbucks. The reason the storm drains matter is that that's where all the plastic straws go. That's why they never get landfilled. They never get recycled. It's impossible to recycle a straw. Waste Management, Pro Disposal, all the major recycling companies do not allow for plastic straw recycling. They jam up the equipment, etc. So it represents about 4% of the litter in our state. And we always like a clean Colorado. Who doesn't want it to be cleaner? I personally pick up straws that come from the Starbucks cups constantly along the chain link fence that runs along my house. They get blown by the wind. And I recognize that every straw that I managed to capture, there are a dozen more that went down the storm drains and are going out to sea. And I want to tell you a couple of things, that because of things like the ubiquitous single-use plastic, every time you drink a plastic bottle of water, you get anywhere between 15 and 53 microplastic fibers that you are ingesting into your body just because of litter and waste. There are, on average, sitting here in this room, 70,000 pieces of microplastics in our bodies. Right now, in our livers, in our lungs, in our hearts. Why would we want to create an environment where more plastic gets to poison us more intensely? So I think this is a bill that has no downside, and it has a heck of a lot of upside. it reduces litter, it still provides choice, it's only for retail food establishments, has no impact on hospitals or nursing homes or individual disabled care facilities. To me, it's a win-win bill, and I really hope that you will pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. Ms. Harkins.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jamie Harkins, and I am here officially representing the position of the City of Boulder, where I work as one of our sustainability coordinators. We've been working towards our community zero waste goal since 1996, actually, and our current zero waste strategic plan, which set a goal of 85% waste diversion by 2030, really started to acknowledge that we can't recycle our way out of this problem, that we have to start addressing the waste we're producing on the front end. And nowhere is that disposable culture more apparent than with things like straws. In fact, because we've already regulated to a certain extent plastic bags, it's probably the number one issue I hear about. Someone asked about demand. When I get emails from constituents to our waste reduction team, it's usually about straws or styrofoam. And so we have seen a great uptick, and we really desire our community to address this issue. So while we support the notion of moving away from disposable plastics, we are opposed to this bill in its current form. It, quite frankly, has way too many exemptions. And really, it does seem like an example of industry trying to set a statewide standard that doesn't go, frankly, far enough. And more importantly, given these exemptions, we strongly oppose a preemption on local communities going further. On one hand, we've been working for years, and hopefully we'll see some progress on this soon, of repealing the very broad preemption local communities have on a wide range of disposable plastics. So it's hard to be working on that for so many years and then see a new preemption introduced at the same time. And regarding the comment that was made about it being too difficult for neighboring municipalities to have different rules, we have that problem in Boulder County all the time. You know, Boulder has a disposable bag fee, other cities do not. We also have a universal waste ordinance that requires recycling and composting, other neighboring jurisdictions do not, and businesses have no problem complying with our regulations. And finally, I just wanted to add that in addition to my role at the City of Boulder, I also serve as the Mayor Pro Tem of Lafayette, north of here. And so really what's exciting is we're having regional conversations right now all across Boulder County, outside the county, on how to do a comprehensive strategy regarding all plastics. So I would really encourage you to leave our options open for that kind of local progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Members, do we have questions? Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize, I didn't get your name.
Nick Phillips.
Phillips?
Nick Phillips.
Nick Phillips, Mr. Phillips. So, from what I understand, you would prefer a total ban on straws?
Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Landgraf, not necessarily saying that I'm for a complete ban, but I'm for finding a true solution to single-use plastic. So if it's saying, let's not have any plastic straws in Colorado, we're falling in line with some of these other countries that are saying we don't want single-use plastics. So having that opportunity, we could lead and say, well, yes, we don't have plastic straws here in Colorado. That way people don't have to have the option.
Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a son who's disabled. He had a brain injury when he was 17. He can't drink out of the cup. He can't drink out of the paper straw because he bites it. So our option would be that he not drink, I guess.
Sustainable plastic straws.
Mr. Phillips.
Yes, Madam Chair, Representative. If you go to Illegal Pete's, you can grab one of their compostable pseudo-plastic straws. They don't compost necessarily in your backyard compost bin, but in a commercial compost setting like Illegal Pete's offers, where they will decompose. So that's where I'm saying I don't think banning is necessarily saying this is it, end all. I think finding and allowing the opportunity to creatively solve this problem, I think that allows your son the opportunity to drink out of the straw that benefits him and also that benefits the world in such that we're not gonna see it for many years to come, his children and so forth.
I don't have children, but thank you.
I apologize.
Representative Trainer.
And this is for the same gentleman, just maybe a follow-up. And you said consumable Pete's?
Illegal Pete's, the burrito.
Mr. Phillips, if you,
Oh.
for the millions of people listening, if you might.
Madam Chair, thank you, Representative. Yes, I'm referring to Illegal Pete's, the burrito chain here.
Sure.
Please, Representative Gardner.
So I guess my question is if there are these other alternative straws out there that are available on the market, would that require Representative Landgraf to, assuming that there was a ban, this is the only option, now all of a sudden she needs to curtail her shopping habits in order to meet this requirement? How do you?
Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, I guess my thought in this would be if you came up with if there's going to be some sort of legislation, it would point business owners all in finding sustainable solutions rather than providing plastic straws that don't decompose. They would all have sustainable solutions that might be acceptable for folks with medical needs. That's really my point in bringing Illegal Pete's up, is they have a sustainable straw that's pretty much like plastic, but it's decomposable. So, thank you.
Members, anybody else have any questions? All right, see none. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on. Randy Mormon, Morgan Cohen, and Brian, I'm not sure it says Wax.
We're live streaming, but you did a really good job. Nervous at all? Yeah, me too. I wasn't lying when I said hemp cards.
And that's your Randy. Is Brian in the room? All right. Is it Wax? W-A-C-K-S, sir? No, I'm sorry, Mormon.
Yes.
Mr. Mormon, if you would please start. Gentlemen, you each have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Randy Mormon. I am the Director of Community Campaigns at EcoCycle and the Vice President and Policy Chair of Recycle Colorado. So I'm happy to take questions about recycling and other words that came up earlier. I come before you today to testify in opposition to House Bill 191143 on behalf of both EcoCycle and Recycle Colorado. Globally, we do have a plastics pollution problem. We have a serious problem that we're only making worse for our children and their children. And this serious problem calls for serious solutions. As an advocate for recycling, I can tell you that we can't recycle our way out of this problem. Only 9% of plastic that has ever been produced has been recycled. Many of the plastics in our waste stream simply can't be recycled. There is no end market for many plastic resins. Number 3, 6, and 7 are the common ones we see, and they simply become trash that never goes away. Plastic vinyl chloride number 3 and polystyrene number 6 are also 2 of the most harmful plastics to human health. At a minimum, as a society, we must stop using single-use disposable plastics that we only use once and then throw away. House Bill 191143 is a useful first step in recognizing that we need to change our approach to plastics. But it doesn't go far enough. For starters, it has several large exemptions, including drive-throughs, delivery through a mobile application. So much of the straw pollution we see comes from these sources. Too often, customers are given plastic straws, utensils, and sauce packets that they don't want or need, since they're either driving home to eat their food or having their food delivered at home. Secondly, there isn't a mechanism to enforce the bill. How will straws upon request be enforced? The restaurants who don't participate be fined. But the biggest problem we have with House Bill 191143 is that it preempts local communities from doing more, like banning plastic straws altogether, except for people with disabilities, requiring only compostable reusable glass metal straws where they are truly needed, or implementing and enforcing the straws upon request requirements. Local communities have this ability, unless their authority is taken away, to craft and tailor these types of regulations that fit the needs of their community and provide the enforcement needed. For example, Seattle, Washington, and Berkeley, California have plastic straw bans or disposable plastic bans, and they both have worked with the local businesses, the disabled community, and others who need straws to accommodate those needs and concerns. By taking away our local community's ability to regulate straws, communities have no way to work with their local businesses and others on local solutions that better reduce straw pollution. We therefore ask the committee to amend this bill and remove the preemption language. If the bill is still amended, then even though we would prefer that the bill had strong enforcement mechanisms, we would support the bill as a small but useful first step in addressing a much larger plastic problem.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Morgan Cullen, and I'm here on behalf of the Colorado Municipal League and the 270 cities and towns across Colorado that we represent. To be clear about our position today on House Bill 19-1143, we are opposed unless amended. If the General Assembly believes that this legislation provides a baseline statewide standard for the use of plastic straws, CML respects your authority to make that determination. The reason we are opposed today is because the bill also includes a statewide preemption that prohibits local governments from passing a more restrictive measure if they choose to do so. We would like to see that provision removed from the bill. And this brings up a broader issue regarding the statewide preemption that the Colorado Municipal League would like to see addressed. Back in 1993, the Colorado State Legislature passed House Bill 93-1318, which prohibits municipalities from prohibiting single-use plastic products in their communities. Last fall, the CML Policy Committee recommended, and our executive board approved, CML initiated legislation to remove this antiquated preemption on local government. This is legislation that we will be pursuing in the 2019 legislative session. As public awareness regarding the environmental impact of these types of products has grown in recent years, residents have begun to petition their local governments to address the problem and work toward reducing the amount of plastic entering the waste stream in their communities. Unfortunately, this statutory prohibition is hindering local government's ability to respond to the interests of their constituents. Because the success or failure of public health and environmental issues depends heavily on grassroots activism, municipal governments, the government closest to the people, play a vital role in helping to enact meaningful change at the state and national level. For example, in 2006, the Colorado General Assembly didn't just wake up one morning and decide to pass the Colorado Clean Indoor Air Act. The groundwork was actually laid much earlier, when citizens began to petition their local governments about the adverse health impacts of secondhand smoke. This led to a large number of municipal governments across the state prohibiting smoking in bars and restaurants in their communities. And this is what ultimately led to the statewide prohibition of smoking in indoor public areas several years later. CML supports uniform statewide standards when they are necessary, but also recognizes the important role that municipalities make toward that end goal. In December, I received a call from Liz Zornes, who is the president of the Estes Park chapter of the League of Women Voters. She called because she was ecstatic that CML would be pursuing a removal of the local preemption on plastic products, and she has continued to call me every 2 weeks to check in to see what her and her organization can do to help. Apparently, the organization has been requesting a statewide ban on single-use plastic grocery bags for years. According to her and her colleagues, single-use grocery bags are inconsistent with the values of their community and a common source of litter that the town is ultimately responsible for cleaning up.
Mr. Cullen, if you could please, sir.
Okay. So basically, Town of Estes Park is a statutory municipality, and they currently don't have the authority to even consider any kind of a prohibition within their community and cannot address Liz's concerns. We thank you for your time and would appreciate your consideration of removing the preemption language in House Bill 1143. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Members, do we have any questions? I have a question then. Representative Bontein in her opening statement talked about sort of this idea of if there were local preemption, that there would be this sort of patchwork, as it were. What would be your understanding, having spoken to many municipalities and other local governments, as to whether they would prefer something more restrictive or less restrictive as it relates to plastic straws or single-use plastic, either one of you? Would like to comment? Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as far as plastic straws are concerned, there is no patchwork. Right now, is already a state prohibition on single-use plastic products. However, some of our home rule municipalities have decided that they do have the statute or the constitutional authority to enact prohibitions on plastic products, and have chose to do so on plastic bags. 8 municipalities have passed some sort of prohibition on plastic bags within their communities, and there's 2 municipalities that have also established some sort of a fee. There is no legal, there's been no case law on this, on whether or not they actually do have the constitutional authority or not. However, no municipalities have passed an ordinance that has to do with plastic straws in their community. If there becomes a time where there is what would be considered a patchwork that needs to be dealt with by some sort of a statewide standard, Colorado Municipal League, and I think our members, would be open to having a discussion about coming up with some sort of a standard. But that is not the case as far as single-use plastic products are concerned right now.
Mr. Mormon, would you care to respond?
I'm fine, that was good.
All right. Members, any other questions? Alrighty. Are there any other witnesses in the room who did not sign up to testify who would like to do so? Seeing no one, the testimony portion is closed. And we're going to stand in a brief recess while we go find Representative Monteith.
Okay, folks, that's it. We're on break. Looks like they'll probably vote. I have a feeling that there's so much support, they'll probably vote it down. Or they probably actually, wait, no, there's 2 or 3 readings, so we'll then go to next reading. They'll probably have some edits, maybe a motion to modify or something. This is first reading?
I believe so.
So I'll have 2 more readings before it would be passed, and there'll be motions accordingly. So hopefully they'll pull out the exemptions for home rule and for local municipalities, and maybe look at biodegradation options, huh? Just the time. Turn into red.
The House Energy and Environment Committee will come back to order. Representative Monteith, we have heard from everyone who wishes to testify. So the bill is now up for amendment. Are there any amendments? Representative Monteith.
Yes, Madam Chair, I apologize for taking longer than I needed to take a bathroom break, but I do have an amendment. I have passed it out to your staff person, Ms. Nika. Amendment L001.
All right, and while it's being handed out, if you would like to tell us a little bit about amendment L001?
Of course, it's basically a technical amendment that allows servers to not only wait to hear from someone to ask, but also that they can ask if a patron wants a straw. Allows for the sale, of making sure that this doesn't affect the sale of retailers to sell plastic straws or consumers to buy at, say, Costco or what have you, for their own personal needs. And also clarifies how this applies to delivery.
All right. Representative Monteith, or listener. She's one of those guys.
Okay.
We often get confused.
She's the beauty and the brains. I'm just, Representative Monteith, I am confused. Would you explain this on line 6 and 7 of the second component part that you were talking about? The retailers being able to sell. I'm sorry, did you explain that?
Representative Monteith.
It just clarifies that you can still continue to buy a plastic straw as a retailer, that this doesn't interfere with that.
Okay, so it's not a ban of the retailers selling them kids?
No.
They can still, okay,
No.
I wasn't sure on that.
Members, any questions? So, I have one, Representative Monteith, along those lines. So, the consumer could buy these plastic straws, much like Representative Landgraf, if she chose to buy bulk plastic straws for her son's use as they ate at different restaurants. Would that be accurate, that she could carry around then those plastic straws? Representative Fontaine.
Well, we don't really say anything about that in the bill, nor did this amendment apply to how a consumer uses the straws. And in fact, I know several businesses who also go to Costco to supply their businesses, so it not just apply to individual consumers, but also to probably businesses who are able to purchase straws for their use in their business as well. But as far as if Representative Landgraf wants to keep straws in her purse, then we don't really talk about that, and she's free to do so. And I had a gift of metal straws when the bill was introduced as a kind of a gag gift. They seem like they'd be pretty useful.
They're not a gag.
Dishwasher there all the time.
Representative Cirillo.
Sorry, then I think I'm a little more confused now, just to clarify. You're saying that this amendment on lines 6 and 7 is pertaining to like a Costco or a Sam's?
Representative Fontaine.
That's an example. It's just to say that they can be purchased in a retail.
So that's considered a retail,
Representative Cirillo.
that's considered a retail food establishment?
No, that's not what we're saying.
Representative Fontaine.
So it's just adding that you, plastic straws can be packaged in bulk, offered to sale for directly to the consumer, so that is an exemption under this. So that you could go to a store and purchase it. Nobody's going to go to a restaurant to purchase straws in bulk. So,
Representative Cirillo.
But this bill is just dealing with restaurants, is my understanding.
Representative Fontaine.
this is an exemption that we make clear where consumers can continue to get straws.
Representative Monroe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would I need a concealed carry for my straws?
Oh, Jesus.
We're silent on that.
Representative Landgraf.
That woman needs to be voted out of office.
And we're the amendment that is on the table.
It's Representative Willis Landgraf of El
Are there
Paso.
any objections to this particular, we need to move the amendment. Representative Weissman.
Thank you, item 0012, House Bill 1140.
Properly moved by Representative Weissman, seconded by Representative Putin. So, now, are there any objections to this particular amendment? Seeing none, Amendment L001 passes. Are there any other amendments? Representative Singh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move L004.
Madam Chair, can I get a copy of that amendment, please?
Absolutely. Representative Singh, please explain your amendment.
Yes, ma'am. So I heard what CML had to say, and I agree that local governments, we shouldn't put this kind of one size fits all. It seems like this would be an excellent business decision in some communities like Boulder to perhaps make sure straws are put in glasses until last. But I'm not sure that every city, I think we should look at the cities if they want to go into single-use plastic products. And I know a lot of this is for local control, so let's do this one.
Representative Fontaine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would consider this amendment unfriendly as we are not banning anything. We are simply asking for people to ask for a straw on request is what it means. It's not a ban. Ask for a no-go amendment.
Members, any other comments? Representative Spread.
But if a local, Representative Monteith, if a local community wanted to do something further, under the bill as is currently written, they would not be able to regulate plastic straws further, is that correct?
Representative, yes. Committee members, are there any other questions?
Oh, look, she has a sustainable straw in her cup. She gets it.
Properly moved by Representative Sane and seconded by Representative Weintraub. Are there any objections to this
I
amendment?
like that.
Seeing none, the amendment passes. All right, are there any other amendments? Representative Geithner.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I move L002.
So they're just ad hoc in the heck out of this right now. So what's happening right now, ladies and gentlemen, is that they're making a whole bunch of amendments to this. That essentially is going to change the verbiage of the bill that we presented our presentations on, changing that bill's language significantly. I'm not really sure what these are because they're not reading them out loud and in full. So we don't have a real clue as to what's going on.
All right, Representative Geithner, if you could please explain this amendment.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. So I think we have, we're talking what certain restaurants are exempt, and we've gone, that's made well aware in the bill of what those restaurants are. But there are certain restaurants that would serve milkshakes and these types of food products that would be otherwise difficult to consume without a straw. And so if we're gonna have provisions where it's a drive-through, fast food, these sorts of things, well then maybe certainly we could allow for a milkshake to be served with a straw. So that's the purpose of this amendment.
Representative Montagne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We exempted drive-throughs, so if you get a milkshake under this version of the bill, do the McDonald's drive-through or what have you, you will still get your straw. And if you are in a restaurant, all you have to do is ask for a straw. That's the meaning of upon request, and you will get one. So I would ask for a no vote.
Representative Geithner.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that, Representative Valentine. There are certain restaurants, though, that would serve milkshakes and stuff that don't have drive-throughs, that don't fall into the categories of these exemptions. It just seems natural that a milkshake would be served with a straw provided without burdening the individual that is attempting to make that purchase with the obligation of making that request.
All right. Representative Geithner has moved amendment L002. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved by Representative Geithner and seconded by Representative Landgraf. Are there any objections to this amendment? Representative? All right, seeing an objection, Ms. Dinka, please call the roll.
Representative Froelich,
Pass.
Geithner,
Yes.
Kip,
No.
Landgraf,
Yes.
Liston,
Yes.
Sane,
Consistency, yes.
Sirota,
No.
Valdez,
No.
Weissman,
No.
Froelich,
No.
Putin,
No.
Madam Chair.
No. And that amendment fails 7-4. All right, are we done with amendments? Do we have any other amendments?
Love for them to make it so that the
Seeing none, the amendment phase is closed. All right, Representative Monteith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the time everybody took on this bill today, and I appreciate the amount of consideration and
Okay, we're leaving here, folks. We're
given
done.
to this bill. I think we certainly have all walked away with an appreciation of the harm of single-use plastics, at least from the brief conversation we had today, and I certainly hope that we continue to have these conversations and work on trying to do something about it. And even though Colorado is a small part of the world, we still should do what we can to affect whatever we do on the world and try to reduce any harm of our impact on the world. I will say that with the amendment that was passed, that taking away the local control issue will make this difficult to, and I'm not saying unworkable, but difficult, and I would ask that respectfully that the committee consider passing a motion to postpone the bill indefinitely.
Thank you.
That's
Representative
garbage.
Wong. Members, are there any final comments? Representative Singh.
Just at the sponsor's request, I'll make that motion.
That's ridiculous.
All right, the motion to postpone indefinitely has been made by Representative Singh, and seconded, I did not hear, by Representative Landgraf. Are there any objections? An objection, Representative Wilson?
Just a comment before we vote.
Certainly. Representative Wilson.
Thank you. Well, Representative Montina, I appreciate you bringing this bill. Quite frankly, I thought your logic and your arguments for it were persuasive, and I was intending to vote for it. So I just wanted you to know that I commend you for trying to allow the restaurants and the consumers to make their own choice. So I think you're on the right track. I'll respect your wishes to PI the bill, but I commend you, and I think your heart and mind were in the right place. And sorry it didn't work out, but I, for one, probably would have supported your bill.
Representative Segura.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to thank Representative Monteith for bringing this bill forward, because I do think we heard compelling testimony about the really serious problem that our world faces with single-use plastics. And I will respect your request to PI this bill today, but I also hope that we can revisit this conversation.
Why would you introduce a bill and then kill it?
To come up with different ways that Colorado can address this problem.
Because the citizens would have a right to have their own regulations. The bill will
Thank you,
not be
Madam Chair,
enacted.
and thank you, Representative Monti. You and I have
Garbage.
had multiple discussions about this bill, and you know that how much I appreciate your effort to address the waste from single use plastics. And I think this was a very honest first attempt. I think the legislators here at the Capitol really want to address this in a very comprehensive way. And if this is something that you're willing to take up again, I would love to be a part of that conversation, and so would my community. But thank you, and I do respect your request.
Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I as well would like to thank you, Representative Lantin, for bringing this bill. This is a major issue, and I'm looking forward to hopefully working with you in the future on making some progress in this area, because I think it is important, and I appreciate the work you've done on this bill.
Representative Kidd.
Thank you, because I will have to redouble my efforts in the near future anyways to ask to not have straws delivered with my drinks, because really, but thank you for putting this forward, and I think that, and I hope that we can do more in the near future to address this. Yes.
Representative Langren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we had a lot of fun with your bill, but I think you made an excellent point, and I do hope that in the absence of this legislation, that the Restaurant Association has spread that word loud and clear, and I think at least those of us sitting here will certainly be very aware of not asking for straws or chips and salsa if we're not going to eat it. or anything else that's been changed, because your point is extremely well taken. Thank you.
Representative Carson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Rep. Lentine, this has been an interesting journey with this bill. Before committee and certainly now.
So the people
I think when I
asked
first
for
read this, I would have
local
been,
legislation.
I viewed it as a small step forward, albeit a small one. And then I became convinced I was going to have to vote against it, and some of the testimony here goes to that. This is an area where there was appropriately room for local innovation, local experimentation. We've heard some of that, the balance between state uniformity and local control is always an interesting balance here. I went, as we've been talking, I went and found the bill from 1993 that put the prohibition language on packaging in there, and I'm quite surprised to learn that we've had that language in the books for 26 years now. We're very close. I think we heard today that there may be other legislation to look at that. I hope that there is. I'm also going to remember some of what we've heard, and I don't get out to eat very often, but I'm trying just by way of personal example to remember to not have that straw sent to my table. So I will respect your wishes to postpone today, but I do think that you fostered a worthwhile discussion. So thank you.
Members, any other comments? I will make a quick one. I too would like to thank you, Representative Lentine, for bringing this bill and for opening up the conversation. And even with the passage of the amendment with the preemption language, we did hear a lot about the number of exemptions currently within the bill and strong enforcement within the current piece of legislation. And we did hear a lot about conversations about a further comprehensive strategy in addressing this issue. And so I too hope that I can be there to support you as we further these conversations, but will also respect your wishes. And with that, we still have to vote.
Why are they pulling the bill? It's so stupid.
Is to postpone indefinitely House Bill 1143. Ms. Dingle, please call the roll.
Representatives Froelich,
Yes.
Reichner,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Langenbrock,
Yes.
Liston,
Yes.
Singh,
Yes.
Sirota,
Yes.
Valdez,
Yes.
Weissman,
Yes.
Liston,
No.
Cruton,
At the request of the sponsor, yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes. And that
That's
motion
it.
passes.
Plastic straw bill is indefinitely suspended.
I just want to say thank you for your time today, and happy to
Thank you all for hanging out. We'll talk about this again later. Oh no, we're not leaving. I want to ask this lady a question.
House Energy and Environment will recess for a little bit.
Representative Dean, I really appreciate you putting this together. I'm really concerned and confused why you pulled it. If the public said that municipal rules would not be good for the bill and that local control and it outright would be acceptable, why did you then, once that was introduced, pull the bill?
Because I believed in the original version of the bill.
So even though you did something that was really, really good and we could have had like a really great stance and 2 more readings, what's your plan now then?
I will be honest, this is not an area I do a lot of work in. I do a lot of work mostly in healthcare. And so environmental issues, while I generally support them, it's not an area I have done a lot of work or know a lot about. And so I may or may not bring something back, but not this year. Because it's kind of past the deadline to reintroduce stuff.
Okay, so yeah, it so confuses me because you could have absolutely just left it to go
Because
forward.
I I didn't think that this was the end of the conversation. I mean, if we did this year, we could still continue to work on it. And I just believe at this point that we're not ready for local jurisdictions to create a patchwork. So I believe in the original version of the bill.
So ban it by request only statewide, or don't do that at all, is what you're saying, correct?
At this point.
At this point. You have my contact card.
I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. It's made out of quality hemp. It's a great example of what we have the potential to do.
Okay.
And I'd love to chat with you more about it. Thank you. Well, folks, we got our answer. That's pretty weak-minded if you ask me, but I'll story for another day.